And we are back for episode 4. Omie D learns. It's been a great season so far. I've learned so much. We've learned about coffee. We've learned about
Yep,
cancer. The last
yep.
show was about cons versus libs, conservatives versus liberals. I learned so much. I don't even know which way I'm voting because I'm not a conservative, but I am a conservative. I am liberal, but I'm not liberal. I want this, but I don't want that. If you didn't check that show out, go back, check out episode
Big,
1.3.
big difference between conservative and liberal or Republican and Democrat, even though some people think that they're one and the same. But yeah, watch that show.
Yeah,
Sorry to interrupt you,
it's
my
okay.
friend. Get your intro on.
Make America great again with that change.
Yeah, MAGA change.
MAGA
Change
change.
everything.
Give me a
Wait, wait, is change liberal? Yeah, don't change,
Don't
but
change.
change.
MAGA.
Wait, I
MAGA.
like this. Don't change this. Yeah,
Conservative. Yeah. So
yeah,
check that
yeah.
show out. It'll blow your mind, and everything you were thinking in the last election is probably accurate because you were smarter than you thought.
Also true.
But
Yeah, yeah.
so
Your thoughts are still good. I just make the argument that you've labeled them the wrong
yeah,
way.
that's it. Everybody, if you did label it with a Sharpie, use an Expo marker and write over it with the Expo marker, wipe it off, and then you can rewrite liberal on it with the Sharpie, and then you can just say, "There you go, you're liberal again." So
There you go.
it's hot. But look, let's blow some more minds. Let's learn some more stuff. So today we're learning not the alphabet, but about the alphabet. So this is
Yeah,
not going to be quite your Sesame
yeah,
Street ABC show, but we're going to learn some alphabet.
yeah, for sure, for sure. Um, so I'm gonna jump right into it. Like before you show images, like I hope some people are grabbing some images from here and looking at some stuff. But before you show it, I want to tell a little bit of story
Okay.
that happens around 3100 BC, and this is a long time ago when Egypt magically transforms into ancient Egypt. Like we go from undocumented prehistory to, oh, Egypt is a real city, and arguably the first real city. Like this is right after the Bronze Age, and it's becoming a significant civilization. You've got your rich, you've got your poor, you've got your slaves, you've got agriculture starting, and it's all along the Nile. And this great citizen, arguably the civilization, arguably the greatest civilization, is formed. Like it's in history where we recognize that medicine, like a consistent medicine, is starting. We recognize agriculture. We recognize that the first wooden boats are made and not just carved out of something like a canoe, but
Oh,
planks are being built into a boat. And we even can tell that this is when the first known peace treaty happens.
oh,
So this this is the first big city that we know of. And that's where this entire point's going to go, is because we know about it, because things were written about it. It was written in the pyramids that they learned how to make. They learned building and architecture and uh, uh, engineering. And what they were putting on these hieroglyphics is what turned into the things that made it a class between the upper class and the lower class. And the upper class could afford to go to school
oh.
and learn how to read hieroglyphics. But
Mm.
all these builders didn't know what all these words were. They didn't know what was going on, because there was a symbol for everything. There was a symbol for hot. There's a symbol for cold. There was a symbol for really hot. There's a symbol for really cold. So just symbols everywhere. There's a symbol for food. There's a symbol for spices. You know, there were symbols for sounds.
Oh, so like the little like speaker thing, little triangle thing. That's where they got that from. That's a hieroglyphic, actually, I assume.
That's it. Yeah,
Yeah.
like all the comic books you read, like the pows and the bangs and everything. Like there's symbols for all that. So many symbols they couldn't. You didn't have time or the money to get educated for it. So hieroglyphics are complicated. And do you do you remember children's books where you see like A is for apple, B is for book,
Oh
M
yeah.
is for moon, G is for Gryffindor.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly. Yeah, Gryffindor. That's
okay.
exactly what I was thinking when I said G.
G, yeah.
G.
So it's the slaves of Egypt that start coming up with their own language, which is going
Mm,
to be as critical to an explosion of knowledge as Gutenberg distributing books to the masses after coming up with the printing press. This is as significant as Martin Luther printing the Bible in German, which was the language of his people,
hmm.
instead of Latin, which was only what the educated knew.
Yeah.
So things like that is what happened to create the alphabet. Um, and that starts with hieroglyphics. So like A is for apple, B is for book, M is for moon, those kind of things. That's where we start. What were the common words that these slaves in Egypt were using?
Gryffindor.
Um, Gryffindor, absolutely Gryffindor.
So
So
crack open a cold and let's get into some alphabet right now. Look,
yeah.
I got a little of the gentleman for the
Mm.
alphabet show. He's hiding in the background. It's okay.
All right, so now you know where we're starting, right? And I got this giant champagne of beers
It's
that
the it's the high
makes
highlight.
my hands tiny, doesn't it?
You need to hold it with two hands so you do like a little kid.
I should run for president.
Couldn't be any worse
Oh,
than what we've had before.
I could try,
Yeah,
but I don't know.
it
It'd be
kind of,
hard.
yeah, it's got a lot of work to do. Got a lot of work to
Mhm.
do. You say so. Alphabet. We got alphabet soup.
Alphabet. So where are we? Tell me where we are in the alphabet.
So basically, we're in the alphabet where we are in America right now. The really rich can afford to go to college, and the really poor can't afford to learn to read. But now the poor people have developed their own language, and now the cool rich kids are envious of the poor kids in the back of the golf caddy shack, and then that guy's about to putt for all that money.
Man, you jumped so many centuries, but that's fine. I think you explained it well.
Caddy shack. That's all.
Um, so where are we starting with developing an alphabet is we're going to start with these symbols that stand for words, like the picture of an apple in a children's book is an apple, but then it says A is for apple. So show me an image there.
Got it.
Um,
Boom.
yeah.
I got you.
So yeah. So what we know from the hieroglyphics is the words that they were used to were something like ox, and you see an ox there. Then the house is this little box, and a club was kind of like a boomerang, a throwing stick. A fish was the weirdest hieroglyph I'd ever seen. Happy, like
Woo!
hieroglyph, like this dude just his arms up in the air, just
Like
happy.
he
Woo,
just
got it.
he's waving them like he just don't care.
Don't care.
Yeah.
Yeah, is up there. So it starts with hieroglyphs. A hand, so you got a hand or a palm. You've got a little symbol for water, which obviously is going to look like a little M at some
Yeah.
point, right?
Mm.
You got a plant. You got wool. Okay, so it looks like a needle and thread.
Okay. Yeah, it does. It does.
Okay.
What?
Then you got a bow, like bow and arrow, which looks like the water, but not as many, and it's going up instead of down.
Okay. Yeah, it kind of looks like a bow. A bow.
And and a signature was just a flat X, like something out of the cartoons we watched as kids. Like signature is like sign here, and it's signature or name or print or brand. It was this X,
you
and
know,
that's
it's
all it was.
you know it's weird because you see all the old contracts and stuff back in the day, and it's signed by the X. And then there's the
Right.
line. And it's amazing that a wheel is a church, or it looks like a mouse with a cross on top of it.
Let's see what. So there was several different words or that came from that, and like the interpretation of just the wheel, and that was the one that I picked up because they turn it into a circle. So it turns into a circle.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah, I like that. I could probably learn hieroglyph.
There you go. Right, exactly. Especially go backwards. Like look at that ox. Like that ox, kind of like a little pointy nose, and
Yeah.
then the back of his head, at the top. And the word for ox was alp.
Yeah. Oh, it's very
So
easy.
it's like A for Alp, You
Yeah.
know, instead of A for apple, you had this A for Alp,
Oh.
and then you look at the script and you can tell that it's starting to turn into something that looks like a letter we're familiar with. Like a
Ah.
house was a bet, a fish was a dig. And if you know your Greek alphabet, you can see that that's starting to look like a little triangle, that D for dig, for delta, that
Mhm.
somehow was a fish and it's turning into this letter. You can see the palm right there, the hand,
Yeah.
that when they just quickly wrote it, because they weren't carving in stone anymore. They were trying to create something that represented the sound, no longer just the symbol.
Mhm.
And so, for a cap, for the hand, for the palm cap, they were like, k, k, k. And so they drew this little symbol, and instead of writing out a hand, they drew a little quick hand, so they could write in sand or they could write on paper or papyrus or whatever it was. They didn't have to chisel something in, so these quick symbols mattered more.
Ah, aka first letters.
It absolutely the first letters, and that's what they used. Was okay, so we recognize some of these major symbols,
Mhm.
that we know what an ox is, we know what a house is. We might not know your bigger letters that you go to school and get educated for, but we know what these are. We know what happy is, and we know that it sounds like a ha ha, what it is. And so we created a quick symbol that looked like that we could draw more easily, and start putting these letters together to form the words that we know.
That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool how
Okay.
they developed their own language, just to be able to communicate just like the wealthy people did. So now they're like, evening the playing field.
Correct. Absolutely.
Mm.
And it started there in Egypt, and it improves with the Phoenician and the Aramaic alphabets, neither of which, strangely enough, have vowels. Like when I showed that Alp and it was like A for Alp, like that does not turn into that. Well, actually, it does turn into A, but somebody else turns it into it. And because the vowels didn't exist,
Mhm.
okay? Um, so Aramaic alphabet. We then get the Hebrew alphabet. Although it has a newer version that's still used, there's still no vowels in it.
Okay.
Okay. Um, then we find the Dead Sea Scrolls written between like 300 BC and 100 AD, and they contain the Hebrew alphabet as well as the Aramaic alphabet, the Greek, Arabic, and Latin text as well. Like the Dead Sea Scrolls contain all these different things that everything starts coming from.
Oh,
Okay, um, so I mean, it just progresses,
so
and it's
but
yeah,
none of these alphabets have vowels yet, right?
no, no, they don't. Nope, no
What?
vowels yet because they didn't need it because they got the word across without the vowel. They were able to communicate without it, and it didn't happen because they didn't need it to happen. Okay,
Okay.
so 3200 BC, ancient Egypt is where it all begins, and then the other alphabets are created. Like in Turkey, 2000 BC, it had about 500 symbols that represented entire words, and we're kind of following the phonetic alphabets. Um, but then you go to 1750, you got Sinai, Egypt. The Canaanites create an alphabet, and that's one where you start seeing a symbol represents a sound, an official alphabet, rather than uh, hieroglyphics. Okay, so what the slaves in Egypt were creating was creating symbols that stood for sounds to create words, but here we finally see it as becoming something that's official, and that's with the Canaanites. Okay.
Okay.
Then let's see, Chinese alphabet pops up around 1400 BC, and I think that's significant just for a timeline so that you know that that's happening about them. And unfortunately, that's not the timeline that I'm following. I just want to throw that out there. Like, nice job, Chinese alphabet.
Yeah.
I don't know it, so I'm not following it. So
There's a lot of Chinese alphabet. And they're like how many? There's a lot of Chinese
it's
alphabets, right?
still symbols. Yeah, it's
So
not letters anymore,
so alphabets really all started off as symbols, and
for sure.
somehow these symbols became attached to sounds that they made when referring to these things? Like, I'm trying to figure out how the sound got attached to these
Like
letters.
A for apple. Like you teach a kid, like this is an apple. How do you know what this symbol looks like and sounds like? It sounds like what you do when you say apple. Like
Okay.
A is there. So
So,
they start creating that. So they're writing those first letters that they know is attached to the word. And we
okay.
still do the same thing for kids now.
Gotcha. So basically, they were taught, people were speaking before they actually began writing things down.
Oh yeah.
And so then
Oh
the,
yeah.
the, the speaking, and then they would draw, like in this, boo-doo-doo-doo-doo, they would draw a picture of an ox, and then
Yep.
they would probably write this script letter under the picture of the ox like
Because it
that.
was faster and it not chiseled into stone.
Yep. And then they've have this whole thing, and they would teach kids these scripts along with these sounds that they made when they saw these, and that's how they developed alphabet
Correct.
and languages.
Language exists. This is written language.
Okay, written
Like they were
language.
already talking and speaking. Like it was already happening, and they were the language that they were writing was no different than the hieroglyphic language. No
Hieroglyphic.
different. It was the same language. They just found a shorthand for it.
Okay, okay, now I got you. So it's amazing how the human will create its own type of communication, even though you said like the wealthy were able to communicate and write things down, but that becomes a way that I guess you can get yourself at a different level. It's like, oh, well, you can't even read, so you definitely can't be
Right.
like this. And now we can understand and communicate. But I'm pretty sure that made the wealthy people mad now that these poor people were learning to
Sure.
educate
Just,
themselves.
just just like the example I gave earlier about Martin Luther in Germany. Like, if you wanted access to the Bible back then,
Hmm.
it was only written in Latin, and so you had to go to church. You had to go to a priest. You did not. The common people didn't have access to the Bible. The
Control.
thing that they listened to is how do they know what that priest was telling them besides what that priest was telling them? And so that's what Martin Luther did, was rewrite it in the German language, which was where he was,
Hmm.
for the people. And now suddenly, oh, I have God's word in my hand and I don't need the priest. And so that's why Martin Luther was crucified. Like that, they were like, we were the word of God. And like, no, I'm holding the word of God. You were just reading it to me because you wouldn't let me learn Latin.
Yeah. See, in some urban areas, they call that fucking up the church's money. That's what they call that.
Yeah, you don't want to do
You
that.
don't want to do
Yeah,
that.
you don't want to do that.
You don't do that. That's
No,
that's a problem for a lot of people. So yeah,
no,
that
you want to make sure you don't mess with the church's money, like grant them like tax exemption so that they vote for you.
yeah, there you go.
Was that controversial? I should have done that in the old ones. My bad.
Hey, look, it's always the whole show. They all go together, and if they got a little tidbit from show 3 and show 4, so whew, love it. But this is the part that I'm loving about this the most is looking at it. And if you're not able to see these images, please download them from down below in the comments. But how this sideways A became like this triangle, and then in the Phoenician alphabet, it's still an A, and then in the
Mhm.
ancient South Arabian alphabet, not so much, but Greek
So
alphabet and Roman alphabet, there it is.
so so here's where it gets fun. Like 1000 BC, Phoenicians, they're probably more conservative with the alphabet, and they're keeping it closer to what's going on. And then over in South Arabia, they start getting pretty liberal with the alphabet. They start writing it right to left to right, up and down, and they create cursive.
Oh shit!
So they're creating this cursive script so that you can be more efficient, you can be more advanced, and their alphabet for everybody becomes so much more advanced because they try different versions. So when you look at like that W down at the bottom, now it's sideways, it's over the left because they can read it left to right. So they're far more advanced because they took more chances with it. But that's still not the alphabet that we're talking about. But just a shout out to the Arabian alphabet and what they've done. Like when we see that script, they can read it whichever way. It can be written whichever way because it's just that available.
I think that was dope. I think at a certain point. So, do you think that people traveled, that these alphabets traveled, like that A made it all the way
Oh
into the
yeah,
Roman alphabet? Do you think, and how do you think that traveled? Just through stories or people finding things, or how did that make it from Egypt to Rome?
trade, receipts, complaints. Have you ever seen in the museum where they got this little stone tablet, and it's written in, I think it's hieroglyphics. Like I wish I would have pulled that into this conversation, but then you have the English translation at the end, and it's basically a Yelp review. It's like, I got cheated by this guy, don't trust him, and it's like carved into this rock, and
Oh
it's
my God.
real and it's old, and it's amazing that that's really where writing comes from, is people just trying to complain about things, like the universal language of complaining.
That is
um,
so cool.
and that helps talk about what the Greeks started doing with the alphabet. So our boys in Greek adopt the Phoenician alphabet in 800 BC. Okay,
Okay.
and this all thanks to trade. It's trade between Lebanon and Greece, and Latin was around, but they didn't want to use Latin the way that the Romans were using it. They weren't interested in that. Okay,
Yeah.
so what? Just kidding. Latin was used in Rome, and they created an alphabet right there, 150 years later. But something really cool happens in Greece, and in order to improve the language and address the different dialects, like they were so welcoming to other people that they wanted to make sure that not only we're going to write so that it sounds the way you talk and the way you talk and the way you talk. They introduced casing, and better, they introduced vowels. So it was
Aha.
alpha, epsilon, iota, omicron, epsilon, and sometimes eta. Um, it was because of the vowels that they put in the language that
Yeah.
we could start seeing dialects and sarcasm.
Wait a minute. You're saying my earlier question inquiring where the hell the vowels were,
The Greeks needed them.
because they were sarcastic sons of bitches.
Yes, and they're like, how the hell am I going to write something sarcastically with? Okay, so you look at some more guttural languages, like a German, for example, and sarcasm's not prevalent there because they can just get to the point.
That's true.
Sarcasm's not there. There's fewer vowels in their spoken language, and this is what blew my mind. Is the Greeks are like, oh heck no! If I'm writing this down and people are going to read it, they're going to know I'm messing with them.
See, I wonder, now that I see that, I'm going to start looking at some of these cultures who have lots of vowels and less vowels and see, like Russians, the Russian alphabet, do they have a lot of vowels? They seem sometimes I've been told that they're very cold people. I don't know if that's right. I'm just guessing here. These are all stereotypes I'm talking about. Don't
Sure,
run around saying Omie D said all Russian people are cold. People,
he said it, and then he meant it literally. There, Moscow's a cold, cold
it is.
city.
It's cold right
Yeah.
now. It's probably
Hmm.
like negative 65 degrees in Moscow. But I think that's interesting because
Kelvin. It's negative 65 Kelvin.
they do kelvins in Russia.
No, I was giving a more accurate negative at 65. That wasn't
Oh,
so dramatic.
okay. I was like, that's horrible. I was like, why would they use Kelvin? I wonder what the temperature is in Russia. But anyway, I have to see that now. I have to start looking at people's alphabets, and I will be questioning the vowels. What would Wheel of Fortune be like? What kind of games did they play before they had vowels? Like, how do you play Hangman?
Um, yeah, because you just draw the symbol. I don't know how would you play a hangman. Listen, we should come up with a hangman game with hieroglyphics.
That would
See if
be
we can do it.
interesting, because then you just like, well, I guess Hangman and hieroglyphics would be Pictionary.
Like, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
same.
oh, oh, guess we're
Yep.
done. Guess we figured that out.
Yeah, you guessed it. You got it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's just
So
change it. Let's rebrand it.
so the cool thing about what the Greeks and the Romans did is they shortened the number of letters that were in there, which actually made it more available for people to learn how to read and write. So they were very progressive and very democratic in their voting and inclusion of all the civilians. And they even made it so the alphabet not only had the opportunity for sarcasm, people understand it, had fewer letters so more people could learn letters and more people could read and write.
So they are
Downhill
basically
from
the kings of comedy.
yeah, for sure.
I love that. I love that. Alphabet talk. This has been hotness. This has been hotness. Like the end of the alphabet talk when you were like sarcasm, like comedy. How? Because I was wondering, like, there's no vowels here. Like, how is vowels going to change language? But just the simple fact that vowels seem to make the language more, I'm going to say, better for everyone, or made it easier for a plethora of people to learn the language. I think it's an awesome thing. It's just the nature of humans to want to communicate, and just really
Yeah.
cool for those cultures. And I think it's really cool because we haven't seen anything take a change like that in our lifetime, to where someone develops an entirely different alphabet to make a language that's more, easily spoken across the world.
We've had that same alphabet since the Romans, 650 BC.
Yeah, everybody's been conservative with that alphabet.
That's true because we're used to it and it's efficient and it's normalized. Like, yeah, nobody's arguing to change the alphabet. Yeah, everybody's conservative in regard to the alphabet. You're absolutely right.
I'm a conservative. I like my alphabet. I like my alphabet.
I'm like my alphabet just the way it is.
I don't
I
like my
like it the way the
alphabet.
Romans intended it.
This is it. For how many years ago? 18 million years ago, man's trying to change my alphabet, and that's it. Like,
600. Yeah.
that's it. So next election, I'm going to tell everybody I'm very conservative with my views based on the alphabet.
Oh, just wait until we get into numerals like 0 through 9. Like, yeah, we're conservative there too. Like, nobody's changing the number system. Like, the number system is fine.
Yeah, yeah. I've always thought about
Nobody
changing.
nobody changes the calendar either. And next time we're talking about religious history and where the calendar comes from and who's changed the calendar. Like, we'll talk about the different variations of the calendar and what they're based on. Like, the religious history is going to be good too. And we'll talk about, you want to talk about the months, and I can tell you who changed the months too. Like, that Caesar guy decided, like, I don't like these months, let's change it, and we still listen to what Caesar did to the months.
See, look, we're all conservative, and you've turned this show into a conservative show. I'm conservative now. I'm gonna go post on the Twitter. Omie D is now conservative, but not only with my alphabet and with my numbers. So
Well, do you want the rules in football to change anytime soon?
uh, yeah, because it needs to be a safer game, and Tom Brady needs to get hit like everybody else. So I said it. So look, I'm looking forward to season 2. I appreciate every single one of you guys and gals checking us out on season 1 with Omie D Learns. Look, I'm gonna be real with you, more or less. From season 1 from episode 1 to season 4, I've become a conservative. So I think you've been successful
By
in your
definition only.
show. By
Your
definition.
views haven't changed. This is like, oh, well, I like this. I'm conservative about it. Yeah.
Yeah, alphabet. So I think this was a success. So like I said, we've got some greatness coming for you, season 2. I don't even know what to say. I'm excited about that. Keep tuning in. Go to all of my Twitters, Facebooks at I am Omie D TX. You want to give them your Twitter handle or any of that good stuff?
Nope.
All right, cool. So follow me. I'll keep you tuned in for all the good stuff. And you see us back season 2 for Omie D Learns, the ODL experience. We'll catch you later.